Yeah.
Is Ken Dawson here?
Did you have a quorum? Yeah, we did. Thank God. Who's praying tonight? Oh, Reverend. If you want him not to say over there, God, 50
I'd like to call to order. I would like to call to order this July 11th meeting of the Finance Committee of the Ascension Parish. Ken, if you would please lead us in prayer. If everyone would rise and please remain standing for the pledge.
Let us pray. Father, we thank you for the continued blessings that you bestow upon us. We ask for your guidance and your wisdom in doing this people business tonight. We also ask for your protection during this storm season, that you protect this coastline, protect the people of Ascension Parish. We also pray, dear God, that you give them strength to continue to move through the recovery of the flood, because we know it's taxing, it's difficult, it's hard, but we know you can do it all. They can do it all through your strength. We ask for your continued guidance. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There are no chairs additions at this time. We do have some folks who are not here tonight. Councilman
Travis
Turner,
Dempsey.
Councilman Dempsey Lambert, Councilman Aaron Lawler,
Randy.
and Councilman Randy Cluott are all not available this evening. We do have a quorum. The one thing that as a chair I would like to do with the consent of the body is to delay the discussion of the ERP, which is item number 6, until later in the evening. One of the representatives from Baker Tilly was delayed in her flight into New Orleans. She has gotten her rental car, and as I understand it, she is en route. So as a courtesy to her, we would like to move that until later in the agenda. If anybody has any significant objections to that, speak now or forever hold your peace. Thank you very much. And don't let me forget to move her. Brandon, will you all please let me know when she arrives? Somebody give me a heads up. Thank you very much. At this time, I'd like to mention that any item on the agenda can be commented upon by the public. If you have a desire to make a comment, please fill out a comment card, hand it to the secretary. She will pass it to me, and I will try to remember to get you up. If I don't, wave your hands. Thank you very much. Okay. General business. Item number 5, review of the ordinance introduced at July 6 council meeting for Ascension Parish Courthouse funding. I believe that this information was in everyone's packets. If I see both the clerk, Bridget, is here tonight. Thank you. Judge Vertigat is here tonight. Thank you for being here. If either of you would like to comment, the committee would welcome your participation.
I don't know if we have any comments, but we're here to answer any questions.
Okay, we'll see if anybody has any questions. And if they do not, well, and even if they do, the chair would certainly entertain a motion.
I move we adopt it.
Have a motion by Councilman Dawson, a second by Councilman Cagnolati. That opens the floor for discussion. Are there any questions?
One quick.
Councilman Lambert.
We did look at the amount of parking that we will have enough parking in that area for that. I know it's a lot of cars come to court, especially with that many courtrooms, so.
Yes,
that
sir.
was looked at.
It was looked at. We're actually going to gain, first initial projections are over 100 spaces.
Okay,
So we're going to have additional parking.
just making sure that was covered. That
Yes.
was a question at the last meeting. Appreciate it.
No problem.
Any other questions, gentlemen? I want to comment that we had the privilege of joining Bridget and Judge Vertigat in Livingston Parish to take a look at their courthouse. We got a very thorough tour of that courthouse. We began to have a better understanding of the intricacies of modern courthouse construction. And certainly many of us were like, why does this cost so much? And it was very, very helpful to see. And certainly I think that if the members of the public have any question about why a courthouse costs so much, those of us who made that tour are open to answer your questions. I'm sure the judge or the clerk would also be happy to answer, but it was enlightening, and I thank you for the opportunity to do that. Councilman Dawson.
So I'd like to reiterate that, and I went on the tour and learned a lot, and I think the major concern, and I can echo that, and I could see that in the courtroom in Livingston, is security and the isolation of the criminals from the jurors and the judges. And so, you know, I was one of those that had the doubts about it, but I see the need for that isolation, segregation, and I'm very supportive of this.
We appreciate y'all's participation in going over there and looking at everything.
It was a pleasure, and thank you very much for the opportunity. And likewise, I am quite supportive of this project moving forward. Gentlemen? Then, are there any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Thank you very much. This time, item number 6 will be moved. And item number 7 is the Ascension Parish Library Board financial presentation. We have the pleasure of having with us this evening the chairman of the Ascension Parish Library Board of Control, Sandy Scowen. Sandy, maybe you didn't have as much time to anticipate, so that's a good thing.
That's okay.
Thank you for being here.
Thank
We
you.
look forward to your presentation.
Thank you. Good evening. The Ascension Parish Library Board of Control has some new members as of January 2017, and I'm very excited about the changes that we have happened since then. We're taking a very strong look at where libraries are in general and where they're headed, specifically our Ascension Parish Library system. We're asking some very tough questions of ourselves. Are we planning to keep on the same path as our prior 5- and 10-year long-term plans, holding the same programs and services as to the status quo? Or will we be making some significant changes? Are there changes in our customer base, and are they going to force alterations in the way we plan or manage for change in the future? Considering the enormous shifts in the populations, the age, the diversity, the tremendous changes in our access to information in today's society, social networking, and the role of the library in today's society, we are probably due to make some specific strategic changes. I'm very pleased to announce that the library has created a Strategic Initiatives Committee, and we have subsequently created some subcommittees, inviting other community members to join us as we further explore information relative to each of these topics. Under the purview of these subcommittees, the board is gathering information and undergoing a serious reassessment of our financial strategies. We took the lead into looking seriously reviewing our financial need regarding the rollback of parish taxes. We're also reviewing the possibilities of paying back all or part of our bond fund in the near futures. We're reviewing outreach efforts. We currently deliver materials monthly to over 30 daycares and Head Start programs. Excuse me. We have created a new outreach coordinator position. We received over 80 applicants. We cut it off at 80. We've interviewed the top 10 candidates, and beginning this week, we will begin second interview process. We're exploring opportunities for bookmobiles, outreach vehicles, and other ways to help service the underserved areas of our parish. This includes material and service deliveries to senior living facilities, underserved areas, the homebound, as well as services to the incarcerated. 2 of our board members recently attended the ALA meeting in Chicago, and we've gathered further information for ourselves to compare with other nationwide activities and how the outreach services are being used in other areas. We're starting an adult literacy program in cooperation with River Parish's Community College. We've expanded and are enhancing our digital services, including more e-books, e-audiobooks, music and video, as well as additional online learning resources. We continue to develop and expand partnerships with the Ascension Parish Schools, St. Elizabeth Hospital, River Parish's Community College, and other organizations focusing on literacy, GED, ACT, SAT prep, etc. We're continuing to review our buildings, renovation, and repairs as needed for future growth. There will be a need to discuss the EPA-approved refrigerant replacement of all the HVAC systems at all our current locations, which can be a significant cost factor. Additionally, we know that the library site in Santa Ma survived the August 2016 floods with little impact. And although there was water on the site, the grass was still visible with very little water retention. This site included approximately 13 acres of land, about which 6.52 acres are designed as wetlands. There has been some very preliminary discussions recently about this library site in Santa Ma and potentially sharing that site with the fire department and the sheriff's office. Therefore, this topic will be on the July agenda of the library board, and we will discuss the feasibility of such an arrangement. As chairman of the Ascension Parish Library Board of Control, I'm very excited about all these changes and positive changes that may be taking place in the near future. And the library board is very serious about the responsibility and the use of the money that the public has entrusted to us. We're continuing to look into all of these issues as they affect the overall status of the library's budget and future financial decisions that the board will make. Ms. Angel has prepared for y'all the statistical information. I believe y'all each have a packet, excuse me, including our funds availability. General fund assets, $6,578,462.13 as of May 31st. Capital funds project, $7,310,112, and total of all funds, $13,888,574.34. I'm very excited about the future of the library for Ascension Parish.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Gentlemen, if you have any questions, certainly we can begin with Councilman Dawson.
Thank you. I appreciate the update, and I really appreciate the modification in the path forward. We're very appreciative of that, and glad to see somebody's willing to change with the future.
Thank you.
I think it's a very important part of the future of our part of the parish, or of the entire parish. A couple of questions, if you don't mind, on the financials. So I see you have $8.62 million contract payable. Can you help me with what that is?
I refer to Angel for some specifics. She deals with the day-to-day budget.
Yeah.
So as chairman, that's
I
not
don't
my
mean to put you on the spot with that.
specialty.
Absolutely.
From the audit report?
This is March 31st, 2017 balance sheet.
Oh, okay. Oh,
Bill, you
okay.
want to repeat your question? Just
Yeah, there's a $8.62 million contract payable.
Contract pay, 8.2.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. Yes, that is the bond issue, that we're in a cooperative agreement with the Parish of Ascension. The council submitted the bond for the library, and the library pays the parish each month for it. And this is the amount of money that we're looking at, seeing if we could pay some of it down.
Okay.
So,
And, what I see on here is you've got about $14.9 million in the banks.
yes, sir. We
Okay.
have approximately $7 million in construction for completion of Galvez Branch, renovation of Donaldsonville, construction of Santa Ma, and the purchase of an outreach vehicle. All of those funds will come out of that.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Satterley.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and thank you, members of the library, for coming and for the report. Just a couple, 2-3 questions. I may have not captured the label correctly. Strategic was it Information Committee?
Strategic Initiatives Committee.
Initiative, okay, Initiative Committee. Who's going to be the members of that committee?
The members consist of the chairman of the library board, 2 other library board members, a representative from the school system, a representative from the finance industry, and a representative from law enforcement.
Who was the last one?
Law enforcement.
Law enforcement. So outsiders from the parish would be the finance member,
Mr. Henry Scheck-Snyder,
okay?
Ms. Lisa Bacala, and Mr. Bobby Webb.
Oh.
And the board.
Nice choices, that's good, yep.
And the board members are Ms. Sandy Scallon, Mr. LaThought Delaney, and Mr. Ryland Person.
Okay. Also in the report, you mentioned, I think it's, that you're starting an adult literacy program. I highly commend you for that. So I assume this is going to be to teach senior illiterates to read. Could you maybe elaborate a little bit about, will that be a volunteer effort? Will it be a bunch of paid folks through your funding, or how's it all going to come about?
Actually, the library intends to hire 1.5 to 2 full-time equivalent employees to have on staff, but we will also work with RPCC, and RPCC will commit volunteers to help train. But we also want the library, since we share a similar mission, but ours deviates slightly because ours is the aspect of literacy that deals with reading.
Right. Okay, and so we've already talked about, it was one of my questions, Councilman Dawson kind of covered the 8.62 million contract payables. It is indeed the bond issue, and I think I heard a report you're going to try to pay that off. So I assume it's probably wise to do that, because even, I don't know what interest rate it's at or anything like that. There's no sense with all the cash you have on hand, maybe even having that debt obligation. I don't know that, but
We
So-
do.
certainly would encourage you to look into it real strongly and
Yes,
decide,
sir.
because when you have money on the books, the public tends to question that.
Yes, sir. We have placed some, our funds in construction, but I think after, as of 2018, we will have the funds needed for construction. So what we will have are the funds needed to run Santa Monica, which until it's built, those funds will be available to pay down on the bond issue.
And at the risk of being redundant, I think last time I quizzed you guys about, well, I think in answer to Mr. Dawson again, you said you have 14.9 million in the bank, paying off the bond issue notwithstanding whatever, you're still going to have a healthy slug of money. And I believe you talked a little bit about perhaps 2 additional geographical locations for the new libraries down the line, one of which has been, I think was Prairieville, where I hold court. Is any of that thinking changed, or?
We are now in the process of expanding the Galvez location. That was an aspect that we looked at because of the population growth.
Right.
The northern part of the parish and the eastern part of the parish are starting to grow significantly, as you all are aware. And so we're addressing the needs there. And we're also looking at the needs of the underserved. That's why we're looking at the mobile issues even more than what we have been doing, because of the fact that even though they may live within 5 miles of a public library, they may not have the mobility to get to the library. So that's why we're looking at mobile vehicles also.
Right. Well, again, thank you, and I appreciate y'all coming tonight.
Thank you.
Any questions on this side, gentlemen?
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Angel
that,
and Sandy, I too commend you on the effort to modernize the way we do things in our libraries, and certainly we're excited. I'm excited about that personally. I think it's extremely exciting. I'm particularly interested in knowing more as time goes by on this coordinated effort with public safety. I see that in other states in which I travel, where there are community centers that have, libraries, public safety, community, the ability for community rooms to be shared and things like that. So I'm very excited that you're looking at that. Thank you very much. It's very progressive, and so we appreciate you being here. If there are no other questions, I thank you for coming, and I look forward to hearing from you again as your strategic plan takes shape. At this time, item number 8, a flood update projects and FEMA reimbursement update from Rick Weber and the Ascension Parish Office of Homeland Security Emergency Preparedness.
Madam Chairman, I appreciate it. I want to give you just a quick update. You should have this document in all of your packets. This thing will brief pretty quickly. I want to start with flood 316, which was the flood prior to the major flood that we had in August of last year. We've just been obligated $806,000 for emergency protective measures for that flood. But that was 17 months ago, so that'll give you a good indication, a good gauge of how long this stuff takes to process through FEMA. So we got about $114,000 on debris removal for that flood, $806,000 on emergency protective measures, and I think we got one more project worksheet that needs to be obligated. Moving on to flood 816, I'm going to brief the temporary categories of work A and B, then I'll let Eric come up and brief you on the permanent categories of work. Moving on to flood 816, which was the major disaster we had in August. Last week it was reported that Ascension Parish would be receiving $5.9 million for debris removal. That was accurate, but it was a little bit misleading, and the reason why it was is that any project worksheet written over $1 million goes through 3 queues. It goes through the local queue at the Joint Field Office, then it goes to Denton, Texas at FEMA Region 6, and then it goes to Washington, D.C. for approval. Once it's approved, our elected officials in D.C. get that data, and then they notify local officials of that approval. They just don't see anything else below $1 million that was approved. So if you look on page 2, that table that you see is all that is what's been approved thus far. This is the money that's been obligated on. This is the money that's that finance can begin to draw down to begin to make us whole on what we spent so far on temporary categories of work. We do have to submit one more project worksheet that's for the work that we did in April of this year, the last pass that we made with DBW crews. But so far, we submitted $7.9 million for debris removal and monitoring services, and it's been obligated $7.3 million back from FEMA. So there's some positive measures that are coming in that we can be made whole on all of this, the issues that we have. On category B, emergency protective measures, this is going to be valued about $4.1 million when it is finally obligated. However, this project worksheet is still in the queue at the JFO in Baton Rouge. It hasn't left Baton Rouge yet, and because it's over $1 million, it still has to go to FEMA Region 6 in Denton, Texas, and still has to go to D.C., so it's going to be a little bit more time before we get this one back in place. Category B is somewhat complex, so it takes a little longer to review and get obligated, but again, that's $1.4 million, and like I told you the last time that I briefed you, I'm fairly confident on categories A and B. Somewhere between the 85 to 92% range that we're going to get reimbursed on this one. So I'm really confident on that one. So I want to bring Eric DeRoche up. He's going to take category C through G, which is our permanent categories of work. A little bit more complex, and this is a guy that's been doing the recovery project management for us, and I'll let him brief you on that.
Good evening. Category C is our roads and bridges. We have submitted project worksheets for that. We've submitted on the roads the traditional way that FEMA likes to see it with the visual inspections and everything. And those FEMA inspectors have come out. They've requested additional data for our project worksheets. We work with DPW gathering that data and submitting that data back and forth to FEMA. And then our secondary method, which is the big one, which is estimated value of $5.4 million for our test case with the scientific data. That project worksheet has been submitted to FEMA headquarters in Washington, D.C. We are waiting for their review and their comment, and that one will take some time, just like with category A and B, because it's such a large scale. We're waiting on FEMA Washington, D.C. to review it and give us our comments, and so we can move forward with that to see if that's going to be an acceptable method to FEMA and their analysis. Also on the bridges, that project worksheet we submitted also was for scientific method, and that project worksheet also has went to Washington, D.C. for a review because of scientific method. We are waiting for their comment and review on that project worksheet also. On the category D, which is the levees, we submitted Alligator Bayou and Henderson Bayou levees initially. After reviewing that information with FEMA, a lot of that work was captured in the category B, emergency protective measures, and will be resubmitted. Some of the information that was needed was not captured by improper documentation and such, so that project worksheet was rescinded because of a lack of documentation, but the bulk of that expense was included in the Category B expenditure for FEMA. Under Category E, which is our buildings and equipment, project worksheets have been submitted and they're under local review right now. One of the biggest holdups right now in getting these awarded is direct administrative cost. That direct administrative cost, we want, there's two ways to submit it. You can submit it after the project, or you can submit it early on in the project at the very beginning. We opted to submit it early on in the beginning, so that way our documents are audit ready. When FEMA comes 3 to 5 years down the road and wants to audit us and wanting information and there's lack of documentation and potential of losing funding and all that, we opted to have everything where it's audit ready when it's submitted and it's obligated, so we know for sure exactly what dollars we will be receiving. So currently, those are in local review. Our current 5 facilities that are considered small projects under local review is the Mosquito Control Office, the River Region Cancer Center, Fire Stations 20, 51, and 80, Fire Station 50, and Fire Station 62. All these buildings, with the exception of the Cancer Center, have been repaired or in process of being repaired. The River Region Cancer Center right now is currently in architectural design. Reason being that is because this estimated cost is going to be above the public works threshold where we have to go out for public sealed bids, so that is currently in that review. The other buildings, the 4 buildings that we have is the Santa Maria Recreation Building / office trailer, along with PJ's Landing Animal Control, Fire Station 60, and Fire Station 61. Those are substantially damaged. Those have been submitted to Washington as a project worksheet. We are waiting for Washington's review because these are substantially damaged based off of floodplain ordinance and also the 50% rule for FEMA. So we are waiting for FEMA's review and comment before we can move forward on those items. On the equipment, FEMA has denied our equipment that is leased, being FEMA's explanation is we do not have ownership of those vehicles that are under lease, and based off the lease terms and agreement, we are to have insurance on those, and so therefore FEMA denied it. However, the vehicles and equipment that were owned by the parish, a project worksheet has been submitted, and we have information going back and forth. We submitted, they asked for information, and we're playing that game of going back and forth with additional information. So the equipment that is owned by the parish, we are expecting a claim and reimbursement on. One of the things with FEMA on the insurance, FEMA nor does the State Insurance Commission recognizes Ascension Parish as self-insured. For that to happen, we have to go through a very in-depth, thorough process with the state for the State Department of Insurance to recognize Ascension Parish as a self-insured program. So that process may be something that the parish may want to look at in the future. On Category G, with recreation facilities, project worksheet has been submitted for the Santa Maria Park electrical switchgear for the ball lighting and everything else. That work has been completed. And that too also is the direct administrative cost that is holding up that project worksheet, where we're trying to get all the information identified and going back and forth with FEMA and having the PW audit ready for closeout when we do submit it. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Rick for the summary of all the categories and then take questions.
Again, just to reiterate what Eric said, is that when the project worksheets on the building was submitted back to me, it didn't capture the direct administrative costs accurately. It didn't capture architectural engineering or testing, and I wanted audit ready. You know, I want the project worksheet to be as right as it can be now, because 3 years from now it's going to be much more difficult to find source documentation and all the documentation we need to do it. So we want to get it right now. If you look at the last page, page 4, there's a table. This is what's been submitted so far, and on the right, the column is what's been obligated. Again, I'm still confident 85 to 92% on the temporary categories A and B. Categories C through G, 60 to 80%. It's, you know, some of this stuff is, we understood that it was new, the way that we were doing it, but if we didn't do it, we had an absolute 0% chance of getting any reimbursement at all. So this is what we're submitting. We're going to be made whole by categories A and B. This is the damages that we incurred, and we're still in the process of review to see what FEMA will reimburse us on. So, you know, other than being subject to your questions, this concludes the briefing.
I have one, Rick, and then I'll take questions from the other members of the commission,
Okay.
of the committee. Under Category C, Roads and Bridges, I understand that there was a request by FEMA of additional data and that you are working with DPW to acquire that information. My question is, does DPW have a deadline to submit that information? What is it, and how can we help you to make sure that you get it when you need it?
I had a meeting with DPW last week and gave them a list of information. I actually received an email late this evening with the data that I've requested. I have not had a chance to review the data they sent. They sent it right at 4:30 to see if that's everything I need, but they have submitted the information. I need to review it.
Excellent, excellent, thank you.
Was that information visual?
It was scanned in copies of work orders for the roads that was repaired.
Excellent, thank you. If there is any problem, we need to be aware, and certainly administration needs to be aware, but, you know, DPW's got its hands full a lot, and we just don't want to have a slow, you know, a trickle of information getting to you when you need it. Thank you very much. I'll take questions from this side. Councilman Lambert.
Yeah, Rick, on the two buildings, I'm sure there's more, Santamon Park and PJ's Landing, they were over 50% damaged. To repair them or to put them back together, you know, 1 million, will we still have to raise it since it's over 50% damaged?
You can go in for an alternate project, but it's gonna have to be within our floodplain management code. The same that applies to our residents would also apply to us. So you
For
have to put
commercial
it
and
for commercial on that.
public building.
Anything you wanna elaborate on that?
No, it's basically the same thing with Ms. Weber just said.
Right. So I guess feasibility, you know, I don't know what, I know that they're trying to get $1 million, but I don't know if that would even put that building up 5 foot up in the air and, you know, that large of a building.
That's true, and probably.
Could you gut that building and just use it as a pavilion?
Yeah, we were looking at alternative projects from that other parishes did in this similar situation. A couple of, just south of us, did an awning with a half wall that if it does flood again, the water can go through. That way you don't need to maintain insurance on the building, and you meet all the floodplain management codes and building codes. You know, all the receptacles are elevated, so we're looking at that after we get this commitment from FEMA to where we go with the design on it.
Sounds good, yeah.
Okay.
Appreciate it. That's all I had, Madam Chairman.
Kind of cover what I had. The only other thing is you mentioned preserve the data, preserve and protect, because it'll come back to haunt you if you don't
Exactly.
keep accurate records. Thank you.
Councilman Johnson.
You said a minute ago, and I don't know if you since then, if you corrected any of it, or if you said you created it in other areas, but you had some information that wasn't accurate or it wasn't correct to be filed with FEMA, and you were trying to get it back into, I think that was under the D category, and you had some of it in B that we were going to be able to recuperate that way. Is it something that we do better record keeping or change the way we're keeping our records to make it more applicable under the other program, or what, Rick? What are we doing to
It's a
improve it?
lesson learned. When we cut the levees on Laurel Ridge, you know, we captured that data fairly accurately when we did the emergency protective measures, and when we cut Alligator Bayou, that was tracked well. The issue is that the estimate on this project worksheet was done on engineering estimates and not the actual cost, so it was a little bit less. The documentation that we saw when we put the levees back together was less substantial than the data that we had when we actually cut it, because every day we would document what we were doing. Lessons learned, Michelle Rayborn is working this issue for me, and we're moving forward with how do we track this data during an emergency much better than we do now. Is there a tech, IT systems that we can use? Well, we're looking at it now, but that's what happened. We captured the emergency protective actions under Category B, and then the actual repairs wasn't quite documented the way that it needs to be documented.
Okay. Yeah, as long as we learn and we're moving forward to capture it in the future, hopefully we won't have to, but if we do, we know how to do that. So
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilman Joseph.
Yeah, Rick, I just, you know, the numbers that reach out, we spent over $24.5 million.
That's not accurate. We didn't spend 24 million.
Okay.
We spent around 11 million, 11, 12 million. Only look at categories A and B.
Yeah.
Those are the temporary categories, and that's what it takes for us to respond. The remaining of it, the balance, would be the damages that we incur, and that we're waiting to see if FEMA's gonna reimburse us on. So what we spent for the response was categories A and B, and then the damages is what we expect to get paid to put everything back in order.
Okay, all right. So out that 11 million, we received 7.3
Yes.
million.
Yeah, we have another 4.1 in category B that we're waiting for an answer from FEMA on exactly what we're getting back, but that one I'm fairly confident on.
But overall, our expenses in there was that total number $24.4 million.
Yeah, if we would get everything, it'll be 24 million. That's including the damages. We're gonna be made whole by the response, so at least by about 90% is what we're projecting, with what we spent out of the contingency fund. The issue is that we're in a hurricane season, and we've depleted much of the contingency fund, so we wanna get this money back in the system as quickly as we can if we do have a hurricane. So
And that's what's my
Yeah.
point is that we used most of the money we already had in that. Okay.
Councilman Dawson. Councilman Satterley. All right, thank you so much.
Thank
Very
you.
thorough presentation. We appreciate you. At this time, we'll go back to item number 6, which is the Parish Enterprise Resource Planning, ERP project. And we will be seeing item A as a discussion and final update from Brandon, as well as Caitlin Humrick-House from Baker Tilly and David, excuse me, David, I'm not pronouncing. Regnery from Tyler Technologies. Brandon, thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you. Good evening, Finance Committee, Councilwoman Casso. So yeah, this is going to be our final update. We're ready to present to you the decision of our selection committee. Before we do, I wanted to introduce the team that we've been working with. I've also got with me in the crowd PJ Peterson. Where'd he go? Oh, he's right here. PJ is going to be our project manager on site that's going to be working with the vendor if we so select them tonight. So we began this project in January of 2016. We formed a steering committee. The steering committee met a number of times. We took site visits to East Baton Rouge Parish. We're lucky to have them as a nearby resource, along with St. Tammany Parish. They're a few steps ahead of us in this process, so we're able to learn from their mistakes and from their successes and apply them to our process. We met with East Baton Rouge early on, and at that point is whenever we decided that we need to get some consultants to help us along this process. Something that the consultants were asked to do for us is to provide an on-site needs assessment. And that's where they come in and analyze how we currently do things, the processes that we use, how we use the software. And I'm going to ask Caitlin to come up and talk a little bit about that process and what the outcome was of that needs assessment.
Yeah, for a needs assessment, typically it's the best way to start out a project like this, really understanding what you're currently doing and what you may need to do with a future system. So what myself and my team came on site and did was we met with almost everybody in the departments, almost every operational area, to talk to them about what systems they're currently using to do work every day, what they like about those systems, what they don't like about those systems, how those systems maybe impede them from doing things effectively or efficiently. And we also met with several executives to talk about what the strategic vision was for the parish and how a new system could really be the foundation to achieving that strategic vision. So a few things that we learned in that session that I would like to bring up because I think they're really important is that one of the goals of having a new system is to really just be working from a single version of the truth. Right now you have what we call shadow systems outside of your main system. So whether that's an Excel spreadsheet or an Access database or a third-party system that's being used because the primary financial system doesn't meet your needs. But what happens then is you not only maybe have people entering the same data into multiple systems, but you have a much larger room for error in what that data is saying. So in a comprehensive ERP system, what happens is you have one single point of data entry, which gives you accurate data to do business reporting off of. And that was something else that we noticed was a really big need for you, is to have users be able to have reporting at their fingertips, not have to wait for finance or for IT to build a report for them, but to be able to log into a system and see a dashboard with metrics that are important to them, to be able to go into the system and run reports at will so that they really have that information. So it's really empowering your staff to use data, accurate data, to make really good decisions. And then another thing we noticed was a goal was to have self-service, not only for employees, to be able to access timesheets, employee records, things like that, but also for citizens to be able to pay their bills online easily, to be able to see, for example, their utility billing history online and make payments, to request things online. It's really the way that government is moving, and people often expect that now when they live somewhere, that they have online options like that. So that was something that was really important. And then, of course, workflow in a system. So right now you have a lot of information being passed around via email or on paper from desk to desk in an ERP system. All of that will be, 90% of it will be in the system. So one thing that does is it makes it more efficient, right? You don't have a lag time in between approvals on things, but also it just really drives accountability in your organization. There's no more excuse of it got lost on my desk, I didn't see it, or things like that. So it really helps information flow through your organization. So those were some of the outcomes that we found when we came out here, and just some of the needs that you really have for an up-to-date system. And those needs are what helped us write the system requirements that went out as part of your RFP. So everything has been kind of driven off of that vision.
Thank you.
Thank you, Caitlin. So, Caitlin and her group came back to us with that needs assessment. As soon as we began studying that needs assessment, we had the flood, so it kind of delayed the project. But whenever we did resume the project, we studied the needs assessment, and we worked with Baker Tilly to create the RFP document that was then posted and sent out for companies to provide responses to. We sent out the RFP on December 22nd, and on February 2nd, the RFP was closed, and we received 2 responses. One of the responses we deemed non-responsive because they apparently didn't understand the scope of what we were asking for. They wanted to act as an implementation consultant rather than actually provide an ERP solution. And then the other company that responded was Tyler Technologies. And I have here today Tyler, who represents, David, that represents Tyler. If you all have any questions directly related to Tyler, you guys can feel free to ask him whenever we're done here. February 13th, Baker Tilly provided the needs assessment report and the responses, the 2 responses that we got. They provided a recommendation based on those responses to us. They acknowledged that Tyler was in fact a responsive bidder, and we came to you guys in March and asked, we gave you an update, and then we asked for your blessing for us to continue through this process, even though we only had the single responsive bidder. So we did so. We then took a field trip to Calcasieu Parish. They're a longtime Tyler customer, and we learned how they currently use the system, what they like and don't like about the system. And then we also reached out to some other neighboring communities that have been Tyler customers or are in the process of implementation and will be Tyler customers. And I sent you guys an email. I think it's been about a week and a half since I sent it, and it detailed 4 different documents. And one of those documents was that feedback that we received from our neighboring communities. The feedback that we did get was all positive. In particular, with East Baton Rouge and St. Tammany, like I mentioned, are both going through the implementation process now with Tyler, and we're very lucky to be able to follow in their footsteps and learn from their mistakes. Up to this point, St. Tammany gave us a rating of 9 out of 10 as far as how happy they have been with the implementation services with Tyler. And East Baton Rouge also gave us some good feedback that they are also very happy with the implementation services so far. So with that, the other thing I wanted to point out was the pricing, the actual quote that Tyler provided to us. There's one item in particular that's not on there that I would recommend that we consider, and that is the use of a change management consultant. It is a service that Tyler can provide. It's something that we learned as far as the feedback that we got from our neighboring parishes and cities around us that have gone through this process. They all wish that they had used the service that Tyler provides, and what that change management person is going to be responsible for is taking the vision that our administration sets forth and says, we're going to change our processes and we're going to start using this software to make government more efficient, and this change management person is going to be here to help you. They're a third party, and that's their expertise is changing workflows and changing processes and allowing the end user that's going to be using the software every day to become accustomed to the new software and the new processes that go along with it. So that additional cost, like I mentioned, is not included in the quote that I sent you. I did ask him to quote it after the fact, and it is $50,000 for the duration of the project.
The time frame duration, please.
Yes. So the estimate is a 2-year project. The first year would pretty much be the core of the ERP system, which is finance. So that's your accounts payable, accounts billable, your general ledger, your budgeting piece, all the parts and pieces that go along with finance. So that's your first year. And then your second year is your payroll, your HR, your utility billing, and then there's other little small modules that are usually associated with either the HR piece or the billing piece. But yeah, we are looking at a total of 2 years. That's the conclusion of my update, if you all have any questions.
Thank you very much, and I want to thank Caitlin as well for presenting to us. And if anyone has any questions, I'm sure there will be a bevy. Councilman Dawson.
Well, I'd like to first, well, let me start by saying that, I'm not normally someone in favor of the single bid response, and Ms. Shivers can attest to that. But, in this case, I think we paid a consultant. They're here tonight to evaluate the bids. They recommended this vendor to provide it. We had a meeting today. I met with Finance, Gwen and her group. They recommended this vendor to be accepted. Brandon and his group was there from technology. They recommended this vendor be accepted. At a professional selection committee, they recommended that this vendor be selected. At a steering committee, and they recommended that. So based on that, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the recommendation, move this to the full council, and add the management of change option.
Second.
I have a second by Councilman Lambert. So I have a motion by Councilman Bill Dawson, a second by Councilman Todd Lambert. Any questions? Councilman Joseph?
Based on that emotion, I just want to, what Mr. Bill Dawson just said, that it was a single bid, and I have an objection to that one single bid. It's not based that we don't need it. It's just that one of those practices that I'm not going to let us constantly do. We done done it before, and I just don't want to be part of that one bid thing. So the company is outstanding. I listened to the information. I know our administration is needed, but my objection is just the one bid, not the information or the company. Okay.
Thank you, Councilman Joseph. Councilman Satterley.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and thank you, Brandon.
Yes, sir.
Well, we all know Tyler was the lone bidder. We can't do a lot about that. And I, like Councilman Dawson and Councilman Joseph, and I guess some others, last time we met with you, Brandon, with the same body in the Finance Committee, was reluctant as well. And quite frankly, even after that, I found some internet information that's documented of folks with concern. But to be quite honest, I couldn't make my mind up, having looked at that, as whether that was just noise or even real. So I do remember asking you, and I thank you for doing it, and I think other of my colleagues did as well, that the best path forward would be to talk to existing, as you called them, communities, cities, parishes. And so in our packets, just so the public knows, it looks like you've reached out to, and you mentioned St. Calcasieu. I want to add St. Martin, the city of Mandeville itself. You mentioned East Baton Rouge and St. Tammany. And what I see is that Calcasieu, St. Martin, Mandeville, and EBR, I would concur, seem to be pretty happy. The city of Covington, however, gave less than a glowing report, but I'm not quite, again, sure why. St. Tammany, it was encouraging for you to add, it's not in the packet, that on a scale of 10, they're on board 9 out of 10. So I really have just one question about St. Tammany, which I respect and love. That's why I bought my fish camp there. Next to Ascension. Ascension has my heart. Slide down, and St. Tammany has my weekends. Number 3, under the St. Tammany Parish government heading on page 2, is talking about the third reason why there were apparently delays in their, and as you said, they're into their implementation, so they're further along as well as Baton Rouge. And it says that the training didn't go well for everybody's benefit, and it gives a reason. Employees in the finance and purchasing were told to go to take online, I guess, tutorial classes. I'm not surprised, being a career college educator, that they didn't apparently do that. And so by the time Tyler came forward with their people to do on-site instructor training, it probably took a lot longer because they weren't, quote, pre-prepared.
Correct.
In terms of the preparation that I guess that Tyler gave them. So my question, I don't know if you can answer this, Brandon, or it would be better if you said David's here from Tyler. It says in the synopsis that they came up with a creative way, and I guess they means Tyler, to deter this from happening in the future.
Yes, sir.
Which would be us.
Yes, sir.
So I would like to know, what was that creative way, and how will we implement it if we
Sure.
decide tonight to go forward with Tyler, since that's the blessing you ultimately seek? So
Sure.
maybe David or yourself would speak to this creative way?
Yeah, I can.
Because I can almost guarantee you, people being the way they are in my
Absolutely.
3 decades of experience with, quote, adults in college and all, procrastination, resistance to change, no one wants to do their homework.
Right.
The dog ate my homework.
Right. Yeah, so that's a very good point, Councilman Satterley. So it was actually the creative way. From what I understand, the IT director was the one that came up with this and presented it to administration. Administration accepted it and are enforcing it. What they decided to do with any future training as part of this project with Tyler was, let me take a step back. What Tyler asks for the end users to do before the instructor-led on-premise training is to go on what they call the Tyler University, the electronic, their website, to do e-training. And it basically allows you to become familiar with whatever module you're fixing to be trained with, so that you at least understand the terminology and that type of thing. So they weren't doing it, or some of them weren't doing it. And the creative way that they came up with was to, whatever department that they had this issue with, as soon as the Tyler consultant recognized that they hadn't done that, they shut down the training for the day, and they charged however much that the cost was for that training. They charged it directly to that department and made them pay for it. And if they didn't have the money to pay for it, they had to go in front of their finance committee and ask for the money. So, and apparently they haven't had the issue since. So,
I must admit, I use such techniques myself as a retired professor emeritus at LSU.
Yeah.
And so the only other thing I would say then, and I'm getting increasingly on board, is I concur with Councilman Dawson's addition to his motion that we do need to hire this, if I captured the name right, change management person.
yes, sir.
I don't want to trivialize this and say, what's another $50,000, but that person seems to me would be essential. And plus that, correct me if I'm wrong, that's a temporary employee that you're saying Tyler could supply. It would perhaps last on our payroll for a year. We're not going to be
Correct.
having a chronic employee here with benefits down the line or anything like that.
Yeah, from what I understand, it would be part of the professional service contract with Tyler. So they would give us a pot of, I think it's days, not hours. They would give us a certain amount of days that we would have access to that consultant, and they would provide that change management both on-site and remotely.
So it would like be billable up to hours, up to 50,000, something like that, or?
I think it's just a pot of days. So it was, it's a flat fee, I'm sorry.
Flat fee for so much
Was it
days and times and training.
for the duration of the project.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you,
sir.
Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Any questions on this side, gentlemen? I don't see any. The chair has a motion by Councilman Dawson and a second by Councilman Lambert. Do I hear any other questions? Any objections?
Yes.
Roll call, Madam Secretary.
Councilman Joseph?
No.
Councilman Dawson?
Yes.
Councilman Satterley?
I'm going to go yes.
Councilman Johnson?
Yes.
Councilman Kluwat?
Yes.
Councilman Cagnalotti?
Yes.
Councilman Lambert, sorry. Todd Lambert.
And the chair votes yes. Thank you, Brandon. Thank all of you. Brandon, I wanted to thank you and Ms. Gwynn especially for the setting up of additional meetings so that we could better understand this. My kudos to the administration for that effort. This was certainly something that we did not understand initially, and I believe that those meetings were very helpful. So thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
Get us that change agent.
Motion carries.
The motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Don.
It's all right.
Keeping me in line.
Just want to be sure it was official.
Absolutely. Okay, so now we will proceed to item number 9, the financial and operating report of Lamar Dixon Expo Center. Kyle, thank you very much, and thank you for
good
your
evening.
materials in advance.
I have a PowerPoint for you guys. If that's queued up. Do I have a? Okay, thank you. Thank you guys for having me, and we are extremely excited to tell this story and talk about the success that this team has enjoyed at Lamar Dixon over the past 16 months that I've been there, and what we're going to talk about the first 180 days of this year. 2015, and the reason we do not have 2016 up here is because there was a change in administration, change in management, 3 months of a flood. 2016 does not depict anything that looks like an event facility whatsoever. So it really wouldn't do anyone any good. So we're looking at 2015, which was the last full operating year of Lamar Dixon as an event facility. For the year, in 2015, in event revenue, which event revenue is simply rental from buildings. That's it. This isn't RV, this isn't stalls, shavings, nothing, parking, nothing. This is just rental of facilities. The facility brought in $462,688 for the year. When we went into the budget for 2017, we budgeted $550,000. We wanted to beat that by at least $90,000. The first 180 days, the events held at Lamar Dixon generated $413,431. I think we're well on our way of meeting that budget. We do not anticipate the second 6 months to look any different than the first 6 months. RV revenue in 2015, $662,366. We budgeted $700. We currently, in the first 180 days, have $470,665. We do not anticipate the second 6 months to look anything different than the first 6 months. Ancillary incomes. Ancillary income is your parking. This is your stalls, shavings, anything other than event and RV. 2015, $73,429. We anticipated $200,000. 180 days in, we're at $134,105. Let's talk about those 180 days. 180 days. 262 total event days. That means there was multiple days where we had more than 1, 2, 3, 4, sometimes 6 events going on at the same time at Lamar Dixon. In calendar days, 146 of those days, there was an event going on. There's an event going on today. LSU State Horse Show is going on right now. Only 34 only 34 days of the first 180 were what we call white dates. Nothing on the calendar. That's it. That's all we had. Put it back together from the party the night before and get ready for the next one. 80%, guys. 80% occupancy over the first 180 days. Again, we do not anticipate the second 6 months to look any different. The diversity of that calendar, one of my goals, one of the things I brought to you guys when I first started was I said, we're going to have a calendar that's diverse as our community. 55 banquets, 46 equestrian, 43 consumer shows, 34 community events, 33 sporting events, 24 weddings and receptions, 19 family shows, 5 benefits, and 3 concerts or festivals. Make up 262 total event days. Also, what we were doing, we were improving our grounds. We were adding to Lamar Dixon's campus. We replaced the North Chiller for $60,000, over $60,000. We redistributed some power in the 4-H building to give us a better opportunity to attract shows. We redesigned the HVAC ducts in there. We brought them up from 15 feet to the contour of the roof, allowing us to book a concert series. We installed a laser marking system in Savoy Arena, and we concreted Pavilions 7 and 8. All within the first 6 months, all within the first 180 days. A 40% increase overall to revenue, all while remaining inside the expense budget that we agreed upon. So we're going to talk a little bit about the future. Some of the things that we want to accomplish at Lamar Dixon. We want a roof connecting the pavilions between 7 and 8. We want an expansion of the solar project, solar energy. We want to lower our carbon footprint, become a little bit more energy efficient. There's going to come a day when we cannot make any more money than where we're at. There are 365 days in a year, and we can't grow that part. All we can do is pack them as much as we can. But we still do not accept the current profit margin, as great as it may be, as being the best we can do. I have a team that wake up every morning, put a hard hat on, and come to work. They work harder than anyone I've ever seen, and they have a great pride. I mean, there are high fives when we book a big show in our office. There's a huge amount of pride out there. As great as this isn't the best we can do. We want to extend the RV lot. We want to create more opportunity for larger shows to come in. We want to develop our camera system, our security, bring up our servers, our cell boosters. We're anticipating shows of over 30,000 people. We want to make sure that they can make a phone call without having to worry about finding a bar. We want to develop a website. We want to bring Lamar Dixon to the future. Maybe show the world a little bit better look, a little bit more accurate snapshot of what's going on. And then again, we want to implement an LED lighting package that will retrofit every building to not only lower energy efficiency or strengthen energy efficiency, lower cost, but also give a little bit better product to those events. I'm very proud of this team. I'm very proud of the administration and this council for allowing us to do this. Every time I come to you guys, every time I want to do something, I've had nothing but support. Nothing but support, and that's the reason Lamar Dixon is successful as it is. I want to thank Ms. Gwen and Dawn for letting me aggravate them for hours on end to ensure that these numbers are correct and ensure that we are doing everything we can. Finance department is second to none in my book. A tremendous group. We're doing well. We are doing well. And we do not anticipate that to change. Any questions?
I'm sure there will be some, absolutely. I have one. You mentioned that 2016, of course, was an outlier. Can you remind me, and certainly the public, how Lamar Dixon was utilized during August 16 flood event, and how it might be used in the future during disaster?
Absolutely. That operation was set up where every single building, every closet, nook and cranny was occupied by someone, whether it be FEMA, Red Cross, whether it be distribution of goods, sandbagging, National Guard, you name it, they were there. Lamar Dixon hosted that recovery operation for over 3 months, depleting the back end of our calendar completely. It served as a sanctuary for our community when not a lot of people had much. There were opportunities for them to seek supplies, clothing. It was an opportunity for them to seek shelter. There was an opportunity for them to come get answers. We had SBA and FEMA in-house every day where you could just drive to Lamar Dixon, get out, and go sit down across from somebody. My house took 3 feet. The last thing I wanted to do in that time was to get on a phone and go through prompts to talk to somebody that was 10 states away while I'm wading through every possession I've ever owned. Lamar Dixon offered our community an opportunity to sit across from somebody, a real live human, face to face, and get those answers. And that's what it will do in the future. It will not only be a sanctuary for them physically, but it will be a sanctuary for them to know that's there, maybe mentally. Maybe it's, hey, look, we're going to do this, and yeah, I'm going to go ahead and fill this out online, but I know that if I'm struggling, I can get in my car and I have somewhere to go locally that's going to help me out. Did that answer the question?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Councilman Joseph.
Carl, look, hey, I'm the one that was always on you but giving us a report. And hey, look, I appreciate the report. Outstanding report. And it's something that our parish need to know. I mean, we all sit up here and we done heard the negative about Lamar Dixon. And it's finally time for us to start hearing some of the positive, what it brings, and actually see the numbers. And so, you know, look, I give you kudos from your whole department, you know, because these numbers are impressive, you know. But that's what the public want to know. That's what I want to know, is we spent our money well worth. We know it's desperate need in the parish that one day it was going to become successful. You showing it being successful. And just keep up the good work and tell all your employees, the administration and everyone, doing an outstanding job with Lamar Dixon. I can't talk no more about it. Great job.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Councilman Dawson.
Well, Kyle, congratulations.
Thank you.
I mean, outstanding. I think that I'm anxious to see what the second half looks like. I'm anxious to see what happens when we finish the road.
The best is yet to come.
Let me ask you this, Kyle. You talked about income and you said you held your expenses. What's your projected net income? Do you know what that might be?
Honestly, with the way that the second half of the year is shaping, I would double those numbers. We'll give you a good snapshot.
That's your revenue, but and how much are your expenses?
Our expenses.
How much are you guys projected to have as net income for the year? Do you know?
I'll have to take a look at that.
Okay.
I'll have to take a look at that a little bit closer. Forecasting expenses in South Louisiana going into a hot hurricane season is difficult, but we will. I can take a look at that and give you a decent idea.
Well, look, I support the goals that you have and these objectives that you have for improving the facility, and certainly you continue to produce the income. Then we want to help you. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Councilman Siler.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and thank you, Cal. Cal, of course, in the antechambers, we had a little talk before coming in here. And for the record, most people that know me know I don't say things in private that I wouldn't say in public. And so what I told you then, first off, I want to thank you for doing something that sometimes can be extraordinary, although I do believe it's part of your and everyone else's job, and that is to give us these reports ahead of time so we can study them, as opposed to handing them out at this meeting. So I said that in private. I want to say it in public. Thank you. Number two would be the general kudos offered to you already by Councilman Oliver Joseph and Councilman Bill Dawson. I concur, particularly noteworthy after assuming that we find out that the net is an important thing, is okay too. But having only 34, I think you called them quiet days, that's pretty amazing, or an 80% occupancy rate in terms of the rental and so forth. I'm a little curious, however, oh, and one more thing before I ask you the question. The first slide you showed, this, which is the, well, showing the first 6 months, because the second hasn't happened, but you said, that you, and if I quote you, the next 6 months you look to, you know, to have come in with the same amount of revenue as in the first 40 days. So you're here to tell us tonight that you're going to go from 400 to around $800,000+, or said another way, pushing $1 million just in rental income in a, quote, so far non-please Lord, great flood of 2016 year?
Yes, sir. That's what we anticipate.
Okay. And that's a segue to my question then. You lost revenue, and that's why you said you didn't show us 2015 from Lamar Dixon. That's understandable, especially with the 3 months while cats, dogs, cows, horses, people,
Right.
everything running amok. And also, I want you to get, I want to be sure I understand this and for the public's benefit. That 3 months wasn't just standalone. You mentioned it hurt you on what you called the back end of your calendar. So if, am I understanding this correctly, people that might want to have rented, you had no idea when everybody would be finally told to get out, and you can't really plan and tell people, yeah, you can definitely have it on this day now and so forth. So it hurt you much more than the 3 years. And then my second comment with that would be, is your budget itself going to be reimbursed from some of this FEMA money and so forth for all the miraculous things that Lamar Dixon did to house all those people, to house all those animals with care and so forth and so on? Or how is that going to work? Have you working with Mr. Weber on that? Or?
Absolutely. Lamar Dixon is included in Mr. Weber's reports to FEMA. How that reimbursement works and what percentage we will receive, I can't really speak to that. I'm not real sure how that part works, but I know that we did turn in our expenses through those times.
That's all I have. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Gentlemen?
Yeah, Kyle, I want to thank you and appreciate, congratulate you also. You know, a lot of people say that Lamar Dixon couldn't make money, you know, it's luckily if it just paid for itself, but it looks like you're making that change, you know. I want to thank you very much for that, and the citizens of this parish also probably appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
Councilman Clua?
Hey, Kyle, you and I talk a decent amount, so good move since like February on Born 7 and 8, and the canopy, you know, whatever we need to get that forward, that's going to close the loop for the LSU livestock show.
It sure will.
And put them in a place where they want to be, and let the 4-H building continue to prosper as it is. How's the Piccadilly contract going?
It's going well. Piccadilly's experiencing success as we grow our events, and Lamar Dixon is growing with them.
That's good. Just politically, as the council members, everybody's going to get, you know, they get calls and things like that, Lamar Dixon did run in a deficit other than projected budget that was given to it for a while before you got there. And that, you know, now we got the fees set, we got things set, we got rules and regulations in place. I want to tell you that I appreciate you working with the local nonprofits and the big nonprofits as they need the facilities, and that you work with them to offset that cost and go out and get independent commercial sponsors and things like that to try to work in and keep those events coming to Lamar Dixon, and where people of the local nonprofit groups can actually use Lamar Dixon and have it where that fee is not burdened to them to a point. And just continue that.
Yes, sir.
We appreciate that. Bill had mentioned the St. Landry Edenborn connector. We feel like that's going to give you a good flow. But I'm going to tell you what, the concert you just had.
Loverboy.
Right. Y'all worked out, I think the traffic worked out good. It was a good coordination between all law enforcement and everybody involved.
Absolutely.
Even without the Edenborn connector.
We decided to have a motorcycle and car show early that afternoon. Give people a reason to kind of come out a little early, split that traffic up. 4,000 people were in the building. But when you kind of spread it out over that, and there's not a hard stop, a hard start, gives them kind of an opportunity to trickle in and keep those people off of 30 as much as we can until 44 is available.
And on the 4-H building, of course, half of it, Bill and I were there for Dance for a Cause Saturday night. And I don't know who else was there. I didn't get to see everybody, but
Are you gonna make the
Randy's gonna be
announcement tonight?
performing next
Huh?
year.
Are you gonna make the announcement tonight?
no.
I've already announced it. Randy is gonna be performing.
Anyway, we noticed what you talked about on the ductworks and the different things that we've done and the way they've turned that venue and used that portion of the building with the light show and everything to set up. It was a great appearance, and it worked out good. That building's it's the most amazing building we got in the parish for sure.
I think it's the finest one in the greater capital region.
Yeah. The commissary rental, how that's going?
It's going well. They're in there working and cooking every day and moving food. So
We feel that commissary was a hidden jewel for a while, and then it had a long-term lease, and it came up. I tried to get the Jambalaya Association over there, but I was unsuccessful in about 6-7 years of trying. But we feel that building on that site is going to be a pivot point for somebody for the future, and so we want to keep that in mind. Just looking at the total of Lamar Dixon's land mass, I want to make everything clear to folks, and maybe CEO Dawson can make that clear, that there's a certain amount of Lamar Dixon that's still run under the recreational department, under the recreation department. So we haven't talked much about the soccer field and the new gymnasium upgrades and things like that. But we hope that one day that facility will be housed under one umbrella. I just want to thank you for what I've seen in the past and what I see now. Keep the place clean. When somebody drives in, I drove up the other day and the sign actually said what you were having, and it pointed in the right direction. And
we
everything
tend
was
people
good.
find the building more often.
Yeah, so that means a lot, just to have that facility looking good. We know that you can't keep every bit of an animal facility perfectly clean, and we know that. I was born and raised with it, so, but keeping it all trimmed out and keeping it good.
Well, that's a tremendous team that I have. That's not.
I want to commend your crew. I remember a long time ago, that they had a crew there that had a great deal of pride. And little Robbie Savoy was one of them, and he tragically passed away, drowned. But as you build those crews and build those folks and get them into the next phase of what you plan on doing on a daily basis around there, just continue to. I want to commend them that pride in their work means everything, and it's starting to show. Good.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Just quick,
Councilman Cagnola.
congratulations and kudos, job well done.
Thank you.
I think everybody on this panel and most people in the parish recognize Lamar Dixon, when it was built, was a phenomenal facility. And for the parish's good fortune to be able to buy it and now operate it, and it was a rough start. I don't think the parish really knew where to get started to try to make it viable and profitable. I think your hire was a good move on our part.
Thank you.
I wish you continued success, and I think it's one of the best facilities in the state.
I agree.
I saw some of its true value during the Katrina recovery, as far as being a haven and a rescue responder hub, headquarters, if you'd have it. Sheriff Wiley hosted the United States Sheriff's Association, and it had sheriff's deputies coming in from all counties and parishes from all over the country, and they just came in like machine work. And they had helipads, helicopters. I mean, you name it, it was ideal for that. But it's truly serving its complete potential, at least most of its complete potential. I like your ideas for the future. Congrats again, and job well done.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Short and sweet, Kyle. Congratulations. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Excellent work, Kyle. Bill and Mary Lee Dixon had an amazing vision. Tommy Martinez had another vision, and together, I think what we have been able to give to the people of Ascension Parish is amazing, and your contribution is going to be phenomenal. It already has been. We look forward to more. Mr. Dawson had a comment.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And again, Kyle doing a great job out there. We are moving forward with that solar project. We have seen significant savings from something that was a grant, $1.2 million grant over there of, I don't know, $20,000, $30,000 a month, and it continues. Not only is it saving us in cost, paying for power, but it also the environmental impact, reduction in CO2 production and everything. There's also a tracking website that can give you the amount of solar energy that's being produced, as well as the emission reduction that we're seeing by producing the solar. We'll send that to you, so it's a good speaking piece. Also, another thing that Kyle was able to do out there, the park and ride. I think some of you may realize that we have companies out there that instead of vehicles driving onto their site, probably covering 30 a little bit, they're parking at Lamar Dixon, and then they're busing them to their work site. That's another aspect that generates some money. Talked about St. Landry, I don't have to say that again. And Councilman Clue, I mentioned this. We are moving forward with the gym and the soccer fields. Scheduling of those facilities will be done by Lamar Dixon. The goal is to maximize the utilization of it. When you're using it for recreation, it's one thing, but it may be a few evenings, a few times when they're closed for recreation that Kyle can utilize it for events. And so we've already done that. That's already moving forward. So he will be accomplishing that. So again, great job with them. I just want to let you know a few more things that we're doing.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you.
Item number 10. Oh, I have a public comment on item 10 and 11. Does the speaker wish to speak on both items or on one and have it suffice for both? Mr. Pettit?
Thank you. It's more of a question. I look at item 10 and we say, update on implementation of SSA consultants' recommendations. Ken Dawson, CAO. Do we have the final narrative that was promised on May 17th at the Special Finance Committee meeting when I was standing here and asking questions, and Madam Chairwoman, you were sitting right there,
Sure.
and Ms. Slaughter was right here, and I turned to her and asked when the final narrative was going to be presented. She said it'll be ready next week. Where is it?
Well, they've not presented their update.
I know
so
that,
we'll see.
But on June 12th, at the Finance Committee meeting, our CAO, Ken Dawson, promised that it would be in by Friday, June 16th. What is today? July 11th. Where is it? Now I see that they're asking, the administration is asking for another $40,000 of taxpayer money. For what? For what? The promises are not being fulfilled. The deadlines are not being met. So what are we doing? We have unratified positions that by home rule charter need to be approved by this council. And the whole reason for the holdup for not ratifying them was waiting for this final report. Where's the final report? Where's the holdup? Does somebody have it and it's not being published? And that's my question. Where's the beef? Where is it?
Thank you, sir. We will certainly ask. Item number 10, update on implementation of SSA consultants' recommendations. Ken.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We do have Dr. Slaughter in the audience who will be addressing this committee. on a couple of things, but let me go through something first. A dashboard was something that we talked about. We talked about a little bit in the Drainage Commission meeting yesterday about how we utilize that particular technology to notify the council and then the public on status of the kind of things we were doing. One thing that will be on there will be tracking of the ERP, progress that we just mentioned tonight, along with the tracking of the implementation of recommendations that we have from our compensation study as well as our efficiency study. The goal is to place as much information at the fingertips of the council and the public to know exactly where we are. I asked Brandon to come and kind of give kind of a demonstration of where we are on it, and we are populating it. As I said last night, the goal is to populate it first with transportation and drainage, and then we will continue to move forward. So, Brandon, if you would do that, please.
Sir. So, CAO Ken Dawson, I believe mentioned this dashboard to you guys previously. I'm sorry for having to be down here, but I got to drive the computer here. What we've built here is it's map-based, and it's a dashboard that's going to show you all the capital improvement projects that are in the parish. Right now, we have data, I'm confident with the data that we've gotten on one of these items. Our administration has given the different departments a deadline. I believe it's before the next council meeting. They're going to get the data for these other capital improvement projects that are currently taking place, and we're going to publish that on here for you guys. And then we'll also make it available to the public as well. So just talking about the interface a little bit, again, it's map-based. The default map that it's going to show you here is based on your council districts. And the one I'm going to show you is in Councilman Turner's district, and it's that Edenborn extension. I'm going to zoom into it here so you can hopefully see it. And I'm going to change it to the aerial imagery real quick. So this gives you an idea of exactly where that project is. And if we click on it, it's going to give you this pop-up menu that's going to give you the information that we're requiring the departments to give us to post up here. It's a description of the project. In this case, it's new road construction and extension between St. Landry Avenue and Edenborn. And we give a start date, an end date, percent complete, the total cost for the project, total amount invoiced, and again, the project type, and in this case, it's a new road. At the two primary departments that we're going to focus on initially for this is going to be transportation and drainage, and then eventually we're going to work our way into utilities, so we'll have the utility capital improvement projects up here and anything else that you guys want to see. Along with this data, we can also do attachments to these objects on the map. In this case, we have the schedule for the Edenborn process or project. There you go. So that, I believe that's directly from the Microsoft project application. It gives you your Gantt chart. We've also got a photo of the project. I believe this was taken recently. And then we've also got the construction plans that the parish did for this project. So these are the types of things that this application can provide to you guys. And the administration is going to push our departments again to get us this data on a timely fashion. We're going to set this up so that it happens on a recurring basis so that we can get you guys the information as timely as possible. If you have any questions on it, I'll be happy to answer them.
Good job.
Congratulations, excellent work.
I can't see it.
Well, once we get this stuff where we can see
I
it.
had a feeling that was coming. I did.
One of the projects that we're going to monitor the replacing of the screen so that the council
Thank
can
you
see it.
very much.
Is that schedule on here that I couldn't see?
It is not, but we are. The equipment has been ordered. I can say that.
We'll put that on there, Councilman Dawson, so you can track it.
Very good.
And I like it.
And one other thing we want, and again, I mean, this is one of the processes to make sure that we accomplish some of the areas that were reported to us. I didn't go over all the things that we already were accomplished before for the lack of redundancy, but that also will be tracked by this particular document. Another thing that we are doing and we're moving forward with is to consolidate the job positions under one job title, which that's also an item on the agenda to approve SSA to move forward with that. Of course, moving forward with some of the efficiency and effectiveness was the situation with a HR director and that kind of thing. And I'm going to ask Dr. Slaughter to give us an update on that particular process. And also she can answer the questions about the detailed follow-up documentation that was going to follow up the efficiency and effectiveness. Because it's my understanding that it didn't change any of the recommendations that were made by SSA. It just gave a little more information about what they looked at. So, Dr. Slaughter.
Thank you. So you're finished now. Does anyone have any questions they want to ask of Mr. Dawson before we move on to agenda item number 11? Mr. Dawson.
Well, I wanted to, just ask that question that Mr. Pettit asked, though, the final report. I don't know, is that something you're going to address, Christine?
I'll be happy to address that,
Okay.
Councilman Dawson. We have, at the very meeting where we attended last time, at the end of that meeting, we received some additional information, which caused us to look into some other things, We now believe that you have some opportunities for savings on workers' compensation. So I think some of the staff was on vacation shortly after that, and 4th of July, we need to get that information inserted and get that to you. So thank you, Mr. Pettit. Appreciate the dates and times. We owe it to you. But no, nothing's changed substantially in the recommendations, just additional information.
Thank you. Any other questions? Mr. Joseph?
That's for your report? That's the end of your report?
No, sir, that was my answer to
Okay, all right. I
Councilman
just want to make
Dawson's
sure. You keep on talking, Doc.
So let me tell you a little bit about some of your searches that you have underway. I'll talk about the Human Resources Director search first. You had 48 applicants. We identified 10 as applicants of interest. That was identified with the help of Wanda from your Human Resources staff, your interim Human Resources Director, and our team. And those 10 were all invited to have telephone interviews and invited to stay in the search, that the parish would be interested in talking with them, and to submit a short video answering a couple of questions, which we often do, especially if we have out-of-town or working candidates where it's hard for them to get in. One dropped out. Unfortunately, this was a very highly qualified candidate. Her salary range started at $200,000, which is a little bit outside our compensation study, and that's why she looks so good on paper. One dropped out because after they listened to what we were looking for on your behalf, they had no public sector experience, and one did not choose to submit a video or return after the initial conversation, did not want to return for a telephone interview. So we ended up with 7 in that pool, and we narrowed it down to 3 that we asked to come in for in-person interviews. Those 3 did come in. We met with some people from the administration, and I think the consensus was that one performed well. The other 2 were fine, but I think that we were looking for a little bit more experience with one and a little more enthusiasm maybe from the other one. After that, when we realized we really have one candidate, we were down to one candidate, the idea was raised of should we go back and look for additional people from the pool. As I mentioned, what we did was restrict it to people with government experience. There were qualified candidates who did not have government experience, in fact, quite a lot, as some industries have contracted recently. We went back to that pool. We have now identified 10 new candidates, and we're going through the same process with them. We had a couple that we were going to speed up and bring in for interviews, but the parish president was out with surgery, I think. So So that will be our next step, is to bring in a few more for interviews, see how those candidates look. We are in the process of checking references for the original 3 candidates. We already had that in process, and with the one that we thought was more outstanding, we're actively, in fact, I just got one of the reference checks from my staff member as I was sitting here, so it's coming along. Questions?
I do.
All right, I see questions all around. Councilman Joseph?
Yes, ma'am. You say that the administration asked for the top 3. And
We brought the top 3. They didn't necessarily give us a number, but we like to bring a group of candidates forward. So we brought 3.
And those top 3, were they all men's, all women's, or nationality, or what? I mean, can I go and ask those details? Because I haven't seen anything, so.
You can ask, but they're irrelevant. You know that, right? Because it's job relevance, and that's not related to being a human resources director. But they were 3 women. They were 3 African-American women.
Okay. My next question is, the one that was qualified, the first one.
They really were all 3 qualified. I hate doing this in a public venue, but they really are all 3 qualified. It's just
one was more outstanding than the other.
others. Thank you. Yes.
No offense, I understand that. Okay. And that individual was asking for the salary or taking the salary that we was offering?
Yes, we had made sure that anybody we brought forward would know what the salary range was, and probably where they would fall in that.
And it was based on your recommendation that we go out for some more as a consultant or administration?
I think that we don't have a problem going out for more, because when you bring people in, you really don't know how they're going to perform. And so to have one that, maybe we would introduce to some of the members of the department teams, and it would be nice to have a bigger pool. So, and we really had excluded some talented people because we were looking for people with government experience, so.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Dawson? Mr. Satterley? Mr. Satterley?
You passed, Bill? Wow. Christelle, thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you.
This HR director's search, the first thing that struck me with the first words out of your mouth tonight, that 48 people applied?
Yes.
What happened to the idea that no one wants to work in Ascension Parish when it comes to like professional engineers, professional people and stuff? I think this goes to prove that that's horse hockey.
It's horse hockey.
Yep, all right.
And-
Now,
and
by the
a
way,
lot of
I
those are
say
very
that,
good
dear,
people.
I don't like doing this in public either, but I say that without seeing. I mean, you might have gotten 42 applicants where they're not qualified to be dog catcher. I don't know that.
Some were not, but a lot of them were
48
very good.
is a healthy amount of applicants, so good. So now we get down to 10 telephone interviews, you said. As for the short videos, we have the 3 dropouts. One of them, unfortunately, you said, who, you can understand why, because we probably can't afford the $200K and so forth. But nonetheless, you bring 3 in your interview. The only thing I would fuss about, love you guys to death. I think you did a great job up until this point. Don't misinterpret this, but I asked possible, but maybe it's not possible, and maybe you could tell me why. And I hate to put you on the spot in public, but I'd like to have been there at those interviews. In fact, I'd have given a substantial amount of money.
Well, you don't even have to have a substantial amount of money. They've all been put on notice that they may be asked back for repeated interviews. That's not uncommon
because
at
I think
all.
we covered this last time. If that's at all possible, I mean,
Absolutely.
because what it does is this is a position that's going to, by the homeroom charter, have to be vetted. I said it before.
Yes.
Makes my job a whole lot easier if I met the person in public. I mean, you could judge so much more of people's mannerisms there, just everything. So anyway, a mile fussing. Now we're back to, I hate to say square zero. That sounds like it's total wasted effort, which it's not. I know these things can be very difficult. I've been involved in so many search committees in my life, I don't even want to think about it. We're looking at the second 10. So why didn't we go back? Did I misunderstand this? For the other 7 didn't make the 3 fly-in interview cut?
Thank you. We're looking at those as well.
Okay.
So, yes.
But you just expanded the pool and said, so in your mind right now, is there at least, and I know you
There's
can't.
17
Well, I mean,
people
out of
being
those
looked
other
at.
7, since they originally made the first 10, is there, you think there's some folks maybe there that we could,
Oh, definitely. I
Okay.
do.
All
I
right.
do. But
so
let me-
this is gonna, no doubt,
Mm-hmm.
come to fruition someday
Yeah, better.
with a real
You've got a lot of
qualified
work for
individual
them
to
to
do this
Yes,
job.
that's right.
Which is
That's
gonna
right.
make it real easy on this council to say yay to the administration, this is our guy or gal. The other comment I'd like to make, and this is a passion of mine, I've made no secret it, I'll repeat it again. I'm a big fan of multicultural diversity, so I'm pleased to see that in that group you had the 3 African-American women, and I hope you got some Caucasian women as well, and so forth and so on in a diverse
know.
group, and that they're all being, and I'm sure they are treated respectfully and everything else, as I think Mr. Joseph was interested in, without actually saying it. And OJ, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. I mean, that's a real powerful piece, I think. All right, so the other question I'm going to wait because it's the money part on it. I have some pretty significant, I'm going to forewarn you, concerns there. Mr. Pettit, I thought, brought them up and enunciated them quite well, but I'm going to hold water on that, Madam Chairman. I'll pass.
Thank you. Any other questions? Mr. Kluwat?
Yeah, Christelle. I'm somewhat inquisitive about we started with 48 as they responded. Can I ask you this? In the initial outcry that went, was there a budgeted salary that's known?
You know, we did not do the posting. And
Well,
that was
okay, well,
done by the parish.
that was done by the parish, so,
And I'm not sure,
well, I mean, at some
excuse me, if
point-
that originally
well,
went
then-
out.
well,
But
then
in
that's-
our conversations with
that-
the group, as we sorted, that were qualified enough to move forward according to the criteria that we jointly had, they all knew what the salary range was.
Okay. And I know that's not always part of a posting, okay?
Right, but it's very important that the candidates know that, because as soon as the very qualified individual heard the salary range, she said, well, I'm making more than double that.
Yeah.
Do
well,
you
we
think they
heard
would
that.
match that? We
Yeah,
said, no.
We heard,
don't
we heard the
think so."
200,000
Yeah.
meetings ago, okay? So what I'm asking is, we started with 48, went down to 1, now we're back up to 10, and you're going back and pull out the other 9, okay? Because, and you're saying that you're going back, you're trying to key in on people with government experience in the government sector. Now you're keying in on people with both the private sector and the government sector, or?
Yes, we're
Because
looking.
I personally I don't have a problem with somebody being in HR coming from the private sector,
Correct,
okay?
right,
So I'm gonna go ahead and say that up
Good.
front. I don't need somebody that came from government.
good.
HR is HR, okay? And, you know, we have our policies and procedures and, you know, implementations, and that person will have to work with it and mold it to the point for he or she. So I'm just wondering how far down the road are we from having somebody in front of us to present to us, okay? And, you know.
We are not a holdup at this point. You have your group of candidates. We can put different filters and criteria in place that will sort, that we actually are doing, that sort. But the reality is, you'll have people who have union experience, and they have a lot of employee relations experience on their application, but that's not really as needed here. You have some people who have gone into already established human resources departments that when we talk to you about, you're gonna need to take a policy manual and really from the ground up, build it. You're gonna need to build performance management. You know, I'm a administrator of, I don't really wanna
Well, I
create.
just
So you have to have somebody who's gonna be real excited about the job.
We're not at the $200,000 mark.
That's right.
And I know that, and I think I told Mr. Dawson that last time it was brought up.
Right.
But we're also not at the $50,000 mark.
That's right.
If we want to achieve this goal.
That's exactly
So
right.
let's get.
And you ought to be able to get a really good
let's-
person for
let's
what
get a
what you're willing
budget
to pay.
and let's get out there and get somebody. And this work you're doing and continue to doing for months and months, this is part of a contract? Pro bono, billable, what is it?
This was not part of our original scope.
So
This
this is
is
billable?
helping you
Yeah.
to get
Okay.
somebody to do some of the things that we know you need to do. So,
Well, then I'll turn my question to the administration, that, you know, there's gonna come a time when we're gonna get somebody based on the population of this business and the size of this business that we call Ascension Parish government. And that's the people that this HR director is gonna have to oversee and facilitate the working lives and the benefits and the relationships of every one of those employees. And I will once more say, I have no problem with it being compared to the private sector. Because in the private sector, we have policies and procedures, and that's what they are. That's what they are when you hire on, that's what they are when you leave. Change in between, okay? It's not a political game here. We need an HR director. Thank you.
Mr. Lambert?
Yeah, out of the 48, any local Ascension Parish?
most are local.
Okay. I know a lot of them were phone
Many
interviews, so
have,
that's what I was
many are not working locally,
Okay.
but they have some tie to the parish.
Some tie, okay.
Even those who are out of state had some tie to the parish in most cases, so.
Appreciate it.
Any other questions? Yes, Mr. Sullivan.
Actually, I have a follow-up to Councilman Kluat's question. And rather than restate the question, I'll just give your answer. You said that we did not do, we meaning, I guess, SSA, the actual posting or the job announcement. The parish did that. I detected, Christelle, I hate to put you on the spot there, maybe you're a little bit, by your facial expression, less than happy in that, or said another way, if you would have had input into that, would have you done anything differently?
We would have.
Could you
you
share with
all,
us in any way, or do I need to talk to you
It went
privately?
to one place, and we felt that because you did have qualified applicants in the pool, once we were asked to get involved, we wanted to work with that group of applicants. But there are specialized places that you can advertise for jobs.
So, again, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. So you're saying that, because that was actually another question I had earlier, and I just didn't ask it. Where did we advertise, and did we advertise in all the right places? Because, again, I have vast experience in this at LSU on dozens and dozens of search committees, and if you don't search in the right place, you won't find that ACON.
That's correct. I do not know what site it was. It was an online site, I can tell by what we're reviewing. And you got a lot of applicants, and you got a lot of qualified applicants. So, but we were not part of that.
But it wasn't
so-
just, since you also disclosed to Mr. Kluat that a lot of the applicants were local or had ties and maybe had left, sort of like our current planning director, is a native Louisiana individual, goes to California, comes back, so forth. But did we actually advertise outside of Louisiana to places like?
It was a national posting. My impression is it was a national posting, and they might have had filters on it, which is why we got
Some sort of journals
the
or
ones that we
something
did.
that would-
No, I think it was one place. I'm going to say this, your Human Resources Department is not used to
Going out on
recruiting in
these
that
searches,
way.
right, okay.
Right, so,
You've answered everything I need, thank you.
thank you.
Mr. Dawson?
I'd like to make a motion to approve this and move it to the full council. The
It
amendment.
was a report, I believe, from.
You got you have an
we
amendment to the
haven't gotten.
contract.
We haven't gotten to number 11 yet.
Oh, well, hold that then.
Oh, that's all.
He's tired of talking about the Human Resource Director. May I make one point, Madam Chairwoman?
You may, and then I have a
we-
comment to make as well.
As Councilman Satterly pointed out, you are all welcome to, this is public information, and all the candidates know that it's public information at this point. So you're all welcome to meet. We're hoping as soon as possible to bring the next group in, to interview, to talk, to visit. So please just let us know. We'd be more than happy to, but the more the merrier. More people who meet people, the better chance you have of a good selection. So, happy to do that.
I will share with you, Christelle, that I was initially very, very, three veries disappointed that the one candidate that this was narrowed down to was not offered a job. I believed that in the process, as I understood it, that should have happened. So, and I still have some concern about that. But having heard your explanation, I find it plausible that it might be more helpful if we have other candidates with which to compare this person. However, I wonder if this individual is still going to be interested in participating. This highly qualified individual who was not offered a job is going to be interested in continuing to pursue this matter.
I will tell you that you've hit the nail on the head, and I went to her LinkedIn page just the other day and saw that she had changed some of the information and said that she was actively looking for a position. And so good people do get picked up, and I do think that is a reason to move with haste. Get through the next group of candidates, get people involved, and then make a selection. I'm just going to say this, because having done many, just like university searches, many executive searches, you're not always right. But you've heard this before. We're an at-will state, and this is an appointed position. It is strictly an appointed position. It does have to be ratified, but it's an appointed position. And if we make a mistake and that person is not up for the task, you thank them very much and you send them on their way. So at some point, a decision needs to be made. Make the best decision you can. We have good people in the pool, and then we do everything we can to make that person successful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Dawson.
Yes, I just wanted to state that part of the process was when we got to several candidates that we were going to schedule meetings with the council so that they had an opportunity to meet. So that was always a part of the process as we move forward. So as Christelle said, the goal was to make sure that you had a chance to meet the person and see who we were bringing up. Okay?
A second round, Christelle.
Now, as Ms. Christelle, Ms. Dawson, as you say, is an appointed position by the president. Parish president make that choice. Parish president pick that applicant. And just want to make sure everyone understand that. He make that choice. So he have to find somebody that he can work with. So it don't matter what you bring up to him. He can choose any one of them he wants. He can pick up number 1. He can pick up number 40 because that's the one he want to work with.
That's correct.
We just have to ratify.
That is a very good point. He can go out in the parking lot and pick somebody. That is his choice, and you all ratify. That's
So the
absolutely
process
correct.
we are doing right here, right now, it can be unuseful because he make that choice. Just like you just brought 3 of them there, assuming he didn't like those 3. So he said, let's bring some more in. He said, parish president had that. We didn't. We didn't have opportunity to interview him, see him, and if we did not make that choice. I just want to make sure that's clear.
That's right. Thank you. I would not say he didn't like the 3.
Well, he didn't
We wanna
select
see
them.
more people.
He didn't
That's correct.
select them.
That's correct.
Mr. Satterley?
Yeah, I would just like to say, I understand Mr. Joseph's comment, and especially when he makes comments and raises volume. I listen really hard. But let's not forget, everyone in this room, that we need to work with this individual as well. And we do have, as was mentioned, I don't like the word power, responsibility to ratify that individual. And I would think the parish president certainly would want to know, before he made the choice, that Councilman X, Y, Z, and Q, and A and B likes this one or likes that one or whatever. Now, still, I agree, it's his choice. But, you know, there's many ways to choke a dog on butter. Again, I've been on all these things. I've been on committees, job searches for peer colleagues, department heads, deans, provosts, real powerful people. Almost all the way up to the president of the University of the LSU system at one time, and I'm probably not supposed to disclose that, okay? But I'm just gonna tell you, man, it's important to get that right person, and you made a real good comment too. But even if you don't, and I agree with Ms. Casso to do this post haste, because you can let the good ones, get out the trap. And I use that affectionately. It's not a trap to be an Ascension Parish. Let me rephrase it.
Right.
Okay? But if the president made the mistake, or we advised him together and made the mistake together, whatever. I mean, look what happened in East Baton Rouge just recently. Gone pecan.
Right.
Person actually lied, apparently, from what I read in the media. I see Mr. Mitchell back there nodding his head in the Advocate by stating all kinds of things that they said they were in their resume that they weren't.
Right.
All right? So those things happen. That notwithstanding, this council has a serious responsibility here in this vetting part. And I, for one, again, want to reiterate, I would like to be at this interview process if at all possible. If not, then I would just ask for an explanation why not. Number two, back to the job description. Supposed to direct my comments to the chair, according to Robert's rules. Ms. Chairman, could we ask the administration that we could get a copy of this job description that went out?
I'm sure we can.
And any future ones, are we re-advertising right now, Ms. Slaughter, for this position?
No, we're not, sir.
So the original one is just out there?
That's correct.
And the individuals that were not selected, they realize that, or we're in contact
No.
with them?
We leave everybody in the pool as long as we can. We've had too many
But what do they know about it?
occasions.
Let's say I'm Joe Blow and I live in Maryland, and you're trying to convince me to come all the way over here to, Ascension Parish in Louisiana. Like you say, I'll go back to my LinkedIn the next day if I haven't heard from you and just re-update my status and say I'm just totally available or whatever. I mean,
Well, if someone is looking, they're looking. And our policy is not to let people know that they are not in the pool unless someone calls us directly and asks that directly. The reason why is we have had situations where we get to the final offer and cannot negotiate with the person, and they turn you down.
do we have
and then
these
you have to go
candidates,
further.
and I'm not sure who we is anymore, but does someone have these candidates ranked from the top to the bottom?
No, sir. They are in pools. They are in,
Is that wise, considering equal opportunity employment statutes and rules?
this is a better way to stay on the right side of the law. We have unqualified candidates, in our opinion. We have qualified candidates. Then of the qualified candidates, you have people who have
So we
government
can apply an
experience.
all or
this
none
kind
to
of
get
experience.
rid of the non-qualified, but eventually, when we do select someone, correct me
We
if I'm
let
wrong.
everyone know. We let
We're gonna have
everyone
to let
know.
everybody else know why they didn't get it,
No, we just have to let them know they didn't get it.
just that they didn't, only if they make trouble that we have to. But
We hope
that
that
gets
they're-
back to the
we
question,
hope
we
they're
somehow should have a ranking to know that this was our best, this was number. I mean, obviously, we flew 3 in. Other people that didn't fly in should know something's up.
Well, eventually you would get to a ranking. If you interviewed 5,
Right,
then if all of you interviewed 5, we would give
Right.
you all rating sheets on certain
Right.
criteria that
Right.
all of you had established ahead of time.
Right.
And then you would rank them, and then that would come together, and that would be the rank of the candidates.
thank you, I pray that happens. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, Christelle, I think does anyone else have any questions or comments about that process? All right, then I think we're good on that one. Let's move on to agenda item number 11. Amendment number 2 to the master contract for professional services between SSA Consultants and the Parish of Ascension to renew the original agreement for an additional year through June 20th, 2018, and to also include Exhibit C with additional scope of work for an additional amount of $40,000. Ken, do you want to begin, or Christelle, do you want to pick up from here?
I kind of already mentioned it in the report, that what the purpose of this was, and basically to consolidate these similar job positions, in the one job title, to create lines of progression, and to help us move forward with some of the items that were identified through the efficiency and effectiveness study with our HR department. So we need the help, and that's something that's critical that we need to get done now, because as we get all these jobs coordinated and sorted out, that has to come back as an ordinance to the council for approval. So it's important that we get this done as soon as we can.
Motion.
I have a motion by Councilman Randy Cluott, a second by Councilman John Cagnolotti. I think we had a way-hanging motion, but we're going to ignore that. And do we have any questions at this time from Christelle? Councilman Satterley.
Yes, ma'am. As I promised, I would hold water until we got to this item, and I'm glad, Councilman Dawson, you've done as well. Item 10. My feeling is this: until Mr. Pettit's main question of where is the SSA final narrative report is answered in terms of my being able to see it just like the public can read it, I'm a bit reluctant to approve another $40,000. Now, that said, my vote tonight, I want everyone to know, especially you, Ms. Slaughter, that it should not be interpreted in any way as a negative to SSA. Rather, I want to see all of what we have gotten for what was spent so far before handing out any more responsibilities and monies. I mean, I'm gonna stop there, and because I'm sure that we're gonna have more discussion in a vote, but I'm reluctant.
Councilman Satterley, thank you. With all due respect, we started out being hired to do a compensation study. Then we were amended to do an efficiency and effectiveness study, which is what the council really wanted. This relates to the compensation part of the study because it's the job title study. It does lead, as Mr. Dawson said, to progression. We can't do career ladders until we rationalize this mishmash of job titles that you've inherited. So I appreciate what you're saying. I don't disagree. And I'll leave it at that.
Mr. Kluat.
I think at some point we've heard from every council member for the past couple of years that we want a position description justified. We want a salary of that position justified, and we want that ranking of that position and where they fit in the org chart and how their responsibilities flow down. That's what I want. That's why I'm voting for this.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Will we need any opposition? Councilman Satterley has opposed. We'll have a roll call, please.
Councilman Joseph?
Yes.
Councilman Dawson?
Yes.
Councilman Satterley?
No.
Councilman Johnson?
Yes.
Councilman Kluat?
Yes.
Councilman Lambert?
Yes.
Councilman Cagnolati?
Yes.
Yes. That motion carries.
Thank you very much.
All right. Item number 12, renewal of a professional services contract between Ascension Parish Government and Dr. Matthew Gamble for psychiatric services for inmates at the Ascension Parish Jail. Compensation is in the amount of $2,000 a month. Christie, welcome.
Thank you.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Kluat, a second by Councilman Cagnolati or Councilman Johnson. Any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes.
Thank you.
Item number 13, a contract with Damian Johnson to be the permanent nighttime security guard at Mental Health. Total contract not to exceed $8,000.
Motion.
I have a motion by Councilman Satterley.
Second.
Second by Councilman Joseph. Any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes.
Thank you all.
Thank you, dear. Agreement between Acadian Total Security, LLC, and Ascension Parish Government for GPS monitoring services. Total amount $4,100, and $19.65 per month, for a total of $49,435.80 per year. Mr. Root.
Yes, ma'am, Councilman. We were able to negotiate with Acadian Security down to below $50,000, and we are receiving all of the equipment we need to fully equip or put a device in every vehicle that the parish government has. Also, we have devices going on the tractors, the spray rigs, and other equipment, so we monitor that. And we're going to receive the service and the equipment for under $50,000, basically almost the same amount of money that we were paying before. So we got all of this for just about the same amount of money.
Motion.
Second.
A motion by Councilman Kluwat, a second by Councilman Cagnalotti. I only have one question, which I may direct to the administration. I hope that the answer to why we do not have a GPS policy yet is that we do not have an HR director, and that is going to come as post haste after we have an HR director, that we have an outstanding GPS policy and procedure around the use of GPS in our vehicles. I have been asking for this, as has the rest, other members of this body, for many, many months, and so I'm hoping that's the answer.
I can,
Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Dawson and I have been talking about this a good bit the last couple of months. One of the reasons I suggested we wait until we had the company on board, because at the time, we weren't certain we'd get the same service, the same type of service that Acadian offered. And I suggested that we wait until you ratified or the contract with the service company. Then we could meet with them and see exactly what kind of service that they can provide, the parameters that they can give us, and then we'll build the policy around that. And now that we know what we have, we're going to get to work this week actually putting together much of the policy based on what the services they can provide. So.
Excellent. And that's great rationale. And that will be reviewed by our hopefully timely hired HR director for its
Absolutely.
credibility as
Absolutely.
as a policy.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions?
Not a question, Madam Chairman, just a comment. Respectfully disagree that we need to wait at all, and I'm glad that you are going to be proactive in this, Mr. Rue, and whoever else is going to assist you in the process. I cannot hardly fathom that we don't have the expertise somewhere in this parish to write this. I'd be glad to help to assist, by the way. Not that I have any magic salves to put on it or anything, but I know this has been a real pet thing of Mr. Lawler, who's not here tonight, Ms. Casso, myself to a lesser extent. Man, we need this policy yesterday. And
Well,
I encourage you all to try to put it together, and now that if we're gonna vote this other thing in tonight, and the other thing, I guess, is we're not gonna have any more situations where some vehicles, that on employees' wishes or not, have it or not, to make it fair, as Mr. Lawler talked about, this is, you just said, in all vehicles.
All government vehicles will have that with the exception of the parish president's vehicle.
So that's one thing that would go right into our
Yes.
plan that we don't have.
And also, at the same time, what we're doing is when we pull the vehicles in to put the device in or to change some of the devices, actually going to be changed in some of the vehicles. We're also going to check the decals, we're going to check everything out on the vehicles to make sure that everything is absolutely legal, and then we'll put them back in service.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Thank you very much, Mr. Rue. Item number 15, change order number 001 for the St. Landry Edenborden Connector, project number 14-023. The contract is to be increased by $115,139.60 and an additional 5 days of contract time. Mr. Enlow.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening. This was the tie-in point at the Edenborn side into the city of Gonzales.
Second.
Have a motion by Councilman Todd Lambert.
Second.
Second by Councilman Bill Dawson. Any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes.
Thank you.
Item number 16, change order number 002, the CWEF project, installation of chloramine booster stations, Palo Alto and Lemonville, to add an additional $26,595 to the total contract amount and an additional 377 days. Is that correct? 377 days?
Yes, Ms. Chairman. The original project was 90 days, and we had them installed and in place, and we end up having the stations were designed to be skater ready, but at the time the parish did not have anything for the skater to speak to, and with the acquisition of the parish water system in Donaldsonville, we now have a SCADA system that we can connect to, and that amount of time is to compensate for to keep the project going until we get this completed. And we have We completed the project. Actually, it had, I think, an original 90 days on it. And then the project was put under a work directive, and they had to install 2 extra lines at that time to space the chlorine and the ammonia apart far enough to make it compliant. And right now, we have a completion date for September 11, and that extra time was to go from the original contract date of April.
Move to approve.
April 28, 16.
Have a motion.
Second.
And by Councilman Dawson, a second by, I heard it over here, OJ, from Councilman Kluat. Any questions? Mr. Joseph?
Yes. Once we get People Water Company on this system, ACUD1,
Yeah.
that pretty much going to eliminate that process, huh? And how far are we from that? That's the next question. It's 2 questions, but.
Yeah, maybe I attempted, yeah, I mean, this is on the Assumption side?
Yeah, well, both sides.
Both sides. But we already, we already have on the actual St. James side where we are receiving water from PUA, and the results are better. This is from the Assumption side, so we want to make sure we are looking at how we make the connections and how we need to do that. If you remember, I think it's coming up for us to approve, or maybe it was approved. I got so many of these different contracts coming up. A assistant or the technical assistance for utilities, you know, that engineering company. So that has recently been done. So the goal is now to get them engaged and involved in moving this process forward. Another thing to think about, we do have $500,000, I'm sorry, on the 219 program that's coming from the Corps that all can assist with this. So the goal is we have the technical assistant engineering firm that could come in and assist us with putting it all together. That was recently approved. We're going to go ahead and have meetings and get it moved forward, Mr. Joseph. So we should be having a schedule of when that's going to happen coming up soon.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Chairman.
You're
sorry.
welcome.
I'm sorry.
You're welcome, dear. All right, any further questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, at this time, number 17, the monthly contract report.
Good evening. You have before you the contract report for the month of June.
Gentlemen, if you will review those, please. If you have any questions, Ms. Sandra can answer them. Any questions, gentlemen?
No object. I mean, I make the motion, we accept it.
It does not need to be, doesn't need a motion. Thank you very much.
We've been here too long, I think.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're a little, after last night and tonight, absolutely. Okay, thank you, Ms. Sandra. Item number 18, budget amendment number 4, approval to introduce ordinance to amend the 2017 budget. Ms. Dawn.
Good evening. You have before you the ordinance for budget amendment number 4, which reads as follows. An ordinance to amend the ordinance approving, adopting, and appropriating the 2017 operating and capital budgets for the Parish of Ascension, adopted by the Ascension Parish Council on the 17th day of November 2016. Section 1. The Ascension Parish Council hereby ordains that the ordinance approving, adopting, and appropriating the 2017 operating and capital budgets for the Parish of Ascension is hereby amended, approved, and appropriated as follows. Operating budget, Fire District Number 2, expenditures, operating supplies for purchase of radios, $14,500, acquisitions, vehicles and equipment, purchase of a fire truck, $220,000.
Have a motion by Councilman Todd Lambert.
Second.
Second by Councilman Oliver Joseph. Any questions? Mr. Dawson.
Dawn, I see in the budget that they have $230,000 of capital outlay. Is that different?
Well, James can allude to the fact they're trying to purchase The more expensive fire truck, I think. It's like it's 400 and something thousand.
If
Yeah.
you'll come to the mic, sir, please, so that the public can,
Okay, so I think you had told me that, James. I
Yes,
didn't
the-
see that written here,
The
though.
new truck is 443.89, 849,
So you had 230, what was the 230 in the budget for?
the fire truck, but it
Yeah.
just wasn't budgeted.
You
enough.
couldn't get one for 230?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay, thanks, James.
you couldn't even get a bad used one for 200. Thank you so much. Any other questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. At this time, we will begin the number 19, the sales and use tax report. Ms. Gwynn.
Good evening. You have before you your regular sales and use tax report for the collection month of May, which is based on April sales. And you can see the difference that the large expansion project in Donaldsonville is still having on our two sales tax districts, number 1 and 2. And on East Ascension Drainage, which was not involved in that project, theirs is, are both year-to-date and month-to-month is up. And you can see by our budget comparisons, there's all of our 3 sales tax districts are still over budget with collections. And then on the second page, you have your bar chart that just represents the sectors. And you can see that all of the 3 are up over the budget, same time year-to-date as 16, except for the petrochemical industry. The 4th one is, you can see the red is the 16, and that's showing you that large industrial project collections on the west side. And then the last one is the pie chart that just uses sales tax district number 1 as a source, and this is just an estimate by our sales tax and use tax authority of where our taxes are collected and what kind of sector, and you can see the percentages across the board. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Gentlemen, do you have any questions? Okay, thank you, Ms. Gwynn, very much. Item number 20, the revenue and expenditure report. Ms. Amanda.
Good evening. Before you are the financial reports for the month of May 2017. Page 1, revenues are at 34.24%. Page 2, expenditures are at 41.91%, at 41.66% of the year. On page 3 are charts that compare the year-to-date revenue and expenditure for both operating and capital to the budget. Page 4 and 5 gives you a brief explanation of the funds that are highlighted on page 1 and 2 that are under the budget for revenues and over the budget for expenditures by 5% or more. And the last page reflects checks that were issued in May over $100,000, and the total of those checks would be $2,603,177.55. Once you review the report, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Anyone have any questions, Ms. Amanda? All right, thank you, ma'am. We'll move on to number 21, bid items to accept lowest responsive bids as followed. Ms. Jones?
Thank you, and good evening. On May 30th, 2017, the Purchasing Department received 19 proposals for general engineering and technical support services for the Utilities Department. The budget for that is $150,000. After review, the Ascension Parish Government Engineering Selection Committee recommends accepting the 3 highest scoring proposals submitted by GSA, Buckhart Horn, and Hartman Engineering, and to authorize the parish president to begin contract negotiations for this service.
Motion. So moved.
Second. Motion by Mr. Randy Cluett, second by Mr. Satterley. Any discussion? Any objections? So move. Move on to B.
On June 21st, 2017, the Purchasing Department received 4 bids for 3M traffic control signs and supplies. After review, the Department of Public Works recommend accepting the lowest responsive bids and to authorize the parish president to enter into any applicable agreement or contract for these materials.
Second.
A motion by Councilman Benny Johnson, a second by Councilman Cagnalotti. Any questions? Any objections? Since there are none, that motion passes.
They're not behaving.
They're not playing well with
They're not
others on that side?
behaving well in the sandbox.
Gentlemen?
Too late.
Okay. All righty, that takes care of that one. Ms. Jones, proceed.
On June 21st, 2017, the purchasing department received 3 bids for a blinker sign flashing LED, stop sign, and anti-vandal mounting kit. After review, the Department of Public Works recommend accepting the lowest responsive bid from Traffic and Parking Control and to authorize the parish president to enter into any applicable agreement or contract for this material.
Motion. Second.
Motion by Councilman Kluwat, second by Councilman Lambert. Any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes.
On June 21st, 2017, the purchasing department received 3 bids for 3M Street road name signs. Noted on Vulcan Signs bid, freight charges to be added for orders less than $500. When questioned, their email response was $75 per sign, making them the highest bidder. Traffic and Parking Control Company did not submit the mandatory sample sign of sheeting material with their bid, deeming their bid non-responsive. After review, the Department of Public Works recommend accepting the lowest responsive bid from Traffic Control Products Company and to authorize the parish president to enter into any applicable agreement or contract for this service.
Motion.
A motion by Councilman Todd Lambert, a second by Councilman John Cagnalotti. I have a question from Councilman Kluwat.
You said on the request, they needed to submit a sample?
That's correct. We, the Department of Public Works, these are reflective signs, and they want a sample of the material when we submit this bid.
Isn't there a standard for that for that gauge of that sign and the coating on it? That can be without the sample? I'm just wondering.
That is a standard, but our bid documents request a sample of the sign.
All right.
And Ms. Jones is not letting them get away with not submitting one.
It's part of the requirement.
Thank you very much. All righty. Any objection? Any other questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. The chair will entertain a motion to adjourn. Yes.
Can I have one thing before we go on?
Absolutely, sir.
In the report by OEP regarding the collections, we do not receive any money from FEMA for the leased vehicles, but we are negotiating with our insurance company. We insured some of those vehicles that we leased as owners, and we're going to receive insurance payments, approximately about $200,000.
Thank you for the clarification, Mr. Parrington. Appreciate that. We are adjourned.